What's up, people? Welcome to this episode of the By the Hood podcast or webcast because I don't know how you're consuming this content. I'm your host as always. My name is Jimmy, and as we start off every show, that is with gratitude. Just want to say thank you to everyone and anyone who supports anything that we have going on. Special shout out to all the students from By the Hood University, as well as the youth from the By the Hood Ownership Camp. Speaking of our camp, we have the next camp coming up this June, starts the end of June into July. And this is going to be a very special camp. I want to send a special shout out to everybody from Better Than Success as well as Philadelphia Real Estate Week who are helping us take our camp to the next level. In fact, June 18th, we're having a black tie event to support the camp here in Philadelphia. I will post information about that black tie event within the description. So if you want to, help us out, we're always looking for volunteers for the camp. If you want to contribute or do something to help the youth, because this is about our youth, it's for kids ages 5 and up. It's completely free for the youth. And we want to make sure that we touch as many families as possible, but I will put information about that. My partner Corey is not here with me right now. He's actually working with some students right now. But as always, our platform is designed to highlight brothers and sisters who are doing amazing work, putting out positive energy, and just doing things to build our community. The sister that I have with us right here is very, very intelligent. She's amazing. In fact, first conversation with her, I learned something I can implement in my business. So without further ado, Kim Avant Bab is in the building. Kim, how are you?
I am amazingly honored to be here. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that. First and foremost, I definitely just want to say thank you for sharing your time. I know time is our most valuable asset, so it's definitely appreciated. But this is about you. We want to highlight you, your work, what you got going on. So to start, can you tell us about your background? Where are you from? Where are you born and raised?
Yes, I will. But before I do that, let me just say I have my 2 tickets to the June 18th event for the young people. So I just want to clear that out right
Listen,
now.
thank you so much for your support. It's definitely appreciated.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So where was I born and raised? Born and raised in West Philadelphia. Yeah. So I travel the world. People ask me where I'm from. I say from Philadelphia. That's where I was born and raised. And for the last 25 years, when I say we, my husband and I, we sleep in South Jersey, but
Okay.
we are from Philly. Yes.
Got you. Got you. So what kind of student were you coming up? What high schools or schools did you go to? What kind of student were you?
Sure, sure. So, my parents moved us from West Philly to Mount Airy back in the early 70s. I went to Catholic school for 9 years out of my life, a number of Catholic schools in Philadelphia, but high school I went to Bishop McDevitt.
Okay.
So I went to Catholic school for 9 years. The last 3 years I went to Martin Luther King High. Hey, hey for the Cougars, and just breezed through my last 3 years because of that Catholic School Foundation. So I
Foundation.
was an
Yeah.
A student, discovered that I was an artist at Martin Luther King High, where I had an opportunity to choose my classes, right?
Mhm.
You can't necessarily do that in Catholic school. So went to Catholic school for 9 years, public school for the last 3, and just breezed through. Yeah.
Okay. So when you were in high school, coming out of high school, what were your dreams or plans then?
To be an interior designer.
Interesting. Okay.
That was my aspiration. I was, like I mentioned, an art major, book nerd, a just really, really a book nerd, and people were really surprised. Not so much surprised with the journey of my life because of the kind of student I was in high school. Always had my nose in a book, very intellectual, as people referred to me at my class reunion, double digit. I was about to say the number, but yeah, the years just whizzed by.
Yes, they
But they
do.
said, we knew you would be so and so because you were such an intellectual and a bookworm.
So where did your journey take you after high school? Did you go to college? Did you jump into business? What was how'd your journey? What happened right after high school?
So I had a brief visit with college. I went to Drexel University
Okay.
right after high school, and I majored in interior design. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yep. Unfortunately, I was derailed from that after a year for medical reasons,
Mhm.
and got into the workforce and have been cruising through work and college, for a lot of years. I don't know how deep you want me to get into that, but yeah.
Yeah, so within that journey of starting out with interior design, I know now. Can you explain what your current business is that you have? What is your current business? I know you work with landlords, but explain to our audience that may have never heard of you. What is your current business?
That's it's like that word is complicated because I live a multifaceted life. My current business, I'm a serial entrepreneur and an
Hmm.
entrepreneur. So for the last 30 plus years, my husband and I have built and operated Bad Properties, which is a company. We're real estate investors. We invest in single family rentals in the Philadelphia market. So we've been doing that for 3 decades. And currently, I would say a year and a half ago, I started Legacy Real Estate Consulting, which is the educational arm of Bad Properties, which is where the whole landlord strategist education and supporting the landlord community comes in. Yeah.
Okay, so you taking your experience and things that you learned along the journey to help other landlords, right?
Exactly, exactly. Now, simultaneous to that, I had a 9 to 5. So I was working a 9 to 5 that I just retired from a year and a half ago at the state level. It was a benefit to me that my career path or my 23-year career, paralleled real estate. So
Okay.
I retired from the state of New Jersey, working for the New Jersey Redevelopment Authority as chief strategy officer, and just navigating the whole aspect of community development around redevelopment, financing redevelopment projects in urban communities across the entire state of New Jersey. And then the last 12 or 13 years of my career being an entrepreneur and creating, operating, and managing the Redevelopment Training Institute.
So it's a couple of things based upon what you said, right? I found interesting, right? One is sometimes when people ask me about getting into real estate, I tell them, and they hate when I say this, and I always say, get a job somewhere in the industry, right? Learn the
Mm,
jargon, learn the vocabulary, learn how things work. Even if your long term goal is to go out on your own, you can learn so much and meet so many contacts from doing that. And it's interesting because in Philadelphia, I find a lot of investors who own a lot of properties. A lot of them are like either former or current PHA employees. It's like they start to understand how the process works and they go out on their own.
mhm.
And so I think that's interesting that you worked on that side in Jersey and then invested in Philadelphia. So I think that's interesting. But you also brought up the concept of being an entrepreneur, which is awesome. Can you explain to our audience what an entrepreneur is? Because I think that's something that a lot of people don't recognize you can be.
Absolutely, absolutely. I had the opportunity to be asked by our president and CEO, I guess like 15 years ago now, to take her vision of creating a hub around training because I can say they now because I'm
Yeah,
retired.
yeah.
The New Jersey Redevelopment Authority are lenders. They're like a bank, specifically for the urban communities in New Jersey. And so what we were faced with was for-profit, nonprofit developers coming to us vying for money to borrow, not always having the intellectual capital and understanding of how to do redevelopment. So her vision was to create an approachable, friendly learning environment. And so she came to me with that vision and said, make it happen. And I did. And so an entrepreneur is someone who builds a business within a company or
Hmm.
within, in this example, within the state of New Jersey. And took that vision, created a framework around it, built the team, led the team, and ultimately created a regionally accredited, recognized redevelopment training institute that trained thousands of industry inquisitives and experts, from attorneys to mayors, and people from all around the country came to that training institute, and they still do. So that
Yeah.
was a major crown in my jewel, in my jewel in my crown. I'm sorry. Yeah,
Yeah, and
my
also I
crown.
want you to explain this too, because one of the things that I understand, a lot of times people try to like jump out too fast instead of like holding their job while they build their dream on the side,
Hmm.
specifically in real estate, because I'm pretty sure this helped you in terms of having that W-2 employment as you built your portfolio. How did that help you grow your portfolio by having that job?
Yeah, and that's a great point. I make the point to young investors or people who ask me, how did you get started and how did you and your husband partner get to where you are? And I say to them that our W-2s were our angel investors, were our biggest investors, right? And I just had a conversation with someone just recently who has a 9 to 5 and is dabbling into real estate and is on the cusp of, should I quit my job or not? And what I say to them, which is what fueled our ability to build a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio, was our 9 to 5. Lenders want to see stability in income, skill set, and the ability to pay back that loan. So
Yeah.
if you have a 9 to 5 that you enjoy and or creates the flexibility to allow you to stay on that job and build your business simultaneously and then be able to replace your income and step off, that's a better strategy than quitting the 9 to 5 and then trying to get funding to fuel your business. There's just, a bigger hurdle to jump through when you don't have a 9 to 5. And fortunately, that's what we did. We had started our real estate business before I embarked on this 22-year career that I just retired from. So we were building it before I started that position, but it just built so much momentum. We were blessed in so many ways to increase the building of it over those 2 decades that I could retire from my 9 to 5 and just commit 120% of my time to building and continuing to build and then start an educational arm of our company.
That's awesome. So you said a couple things there. One was you did something that you enjoyed. So we're not saying if you hate your job out there, if you're miserable going to work, you're going to be miserable, right?
Right.
So is you enjoyed it, but also your job indirectly was around the same business you were building. So the question I have is, what was your biggest takeaway from that time you spent as an entrepreneur that helps you now that you're fully dedicated to your business? What would you say is like something that's helped you the most, or your biggest takeaway from that?
Jimmy, if one is not spiritually grounded, it's hard to recognize when you reflect
Okay.
and look back. And for me, every time I say this, like I get like filled up that I can pivot and look back in my life and my career and see how every previous step has prepared me for where I am today. Right. I
Mm-hmm.
was approached by our CEO with this idea and built a redevelopment training institute. Right. And that skill set and that accomplishment has created the platform for what I'm doing today with Legacy Real Estate Consulting. Is an
Mm-hmm.
education arm. When I was building that training institute, I said to myself, I can add to my resume that I am a course designer. Like I was designing courses, finding instructors all around the world. And so I'm doing that same thing for
Mm-hmm.
Legacy Real Estate Consulting. So what I did there really prepared me, unbeknownst to me,
Mm-hmm.
for what I'm currently offering to landlords and real estate investors in my current business.
Okay, got you. So kind of like everything. So I mean, and that's a great answer. But that also means that you're aware, and like you said, you're able to look back and reflect and see that everything leads to where you are today,
Yep.
right? So it's not about being perfect. It's about making mistakes and learning from them and moving forward. But everything leading you to where you are, right? So I have to ask you this question though about this journey that you've had. What has been the biggest obstacle or something that you had to overcome to get you from where you started to where you are now? That you have these flourishing businesses and you're living out your dream. What would you say is the biggest hurdle that you had to overcome?
I thought about the answer to this question, Jimmy, and it's very personal to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an obstacle that I had. It was more of an obstacle that those who wanted to bring me on their team had, which is
Okay.
that I don't have a college degree.
Okay.
And in certain circles, the college degree is a prerequisite to get you to the table.
Mm-hmm.
And what was convincing to my employers was that I had a skill set, a natural skill set, grit and ambition and ability to deliver, that they could not discount me because I didn't have a college degree, because I was delivering every single time, self-starter, lifetime student. And I remember saying to the director of procurement at the University of Pennsylvania back in the 80s, when my journey really pivoted from having a job to a
Mm-hmm.
career. In
Okay.
that cover letter, back in the day, you had to do the cover letter and the
Mm-hmm.
resume. And I
Yeah.
remember writing in the cover letter that it would be to your disservice if you did not hire me. And I've continued that same attitude throughout my career, and it has fared very well to me because I've delivered. But being sometimes in those, I don't want to say elitist rooms, because sometimes they are,
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
where if you don't have a degree, people try to make you seem small.
But you
But
you were so good at the job that they couldn't deny you, right?
they couldn't deny me. And so a added challenge to that imposter syndrome reverse is that I matriculated, not including the first time at Drexel, but 4 times to universities over my
Okay.
career, saying in my mind, I got to get this piece of paper. I got to get this piece of paper to
Mm-hmm.
qualify or justify. But every time I had to relinquish, I had to discontinue that college, you know, experience because I was getting promoted. I'm
Yeah.
like, so do I dedicate the time to the books, or do I dedicate the time to, boning up on taking advantage of this promotion? And every
Okay.
time I said, they're offering you the promotion because you've obviously got what it takes. So books, I'm putting you on pause. And I
Mm-hmm.
went back, 1, 2, 3, 4 times and finally said, listen, as chief strategy officer, 2 people removed from the governor, I think I'm cool. I
Yeah, yeah,
think
yeah. Let me
I'm
ask you
doing
this
something right.
question.
I don't think I need that piece of paper right now.
That's an interesting response to that question. But let me ask you this though, building on that. If you had someone who's younger in your family, or a kid, or just someone looking for mentorship, and they ask you that question, they were on the fence about going to college or not,
Right.
what would your response be, considering your experience, right? Because from what I'm hearing is, if you would have had the degree, you probably would have still ended up in the same place, but it might have been a little bit faster. Is that, if I'm reading that right? Or
Not
um,
necessarily, not fast
necessarily? Not
enough.
necessarily. Okay. So, what would your response be to someone asking for your opinion about the college? Getting that college degree.
Sure. Someone said something very profound to me early in my career in the form of a question. He asked me, what is one of our greatest assets? And I pondered it for a while. Long story short, he said, one of our greatest assets is our ability to reinvent ourselves at any time,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we can do that through knowledge and education. So if we want to be an image consultant, that's all we need to do. You don't even need to go to the library anymore. You can get on your, smartphone and
Yeah.
just, Google and learn and read a book a week on image consulting. And if you need to go through a certification, fine. But we have the ability to reinvent ourselves. So what I would say to a young person is that, because college is not for everybody,
At all.
right? But everybody has a skill set and an acumen. So now I'm not talking about, rocket scientists or heart.
Surgeons. Yeah, I know. I get it. I get it. I get it. Certain things. Yes. Yes.
I need you to go to college to get that.
Yeah.
But if there's something that you're interested in, study up on it and network, right? Build your interpersonal skills and your professional skills, and your work acumen. Build yourself internally so that you can articulate what your vision is. And once you educate yourself, and bone up, put it out there and deliver. The other profound statement that was said to me, I asked a woman that was on a panel that I was very respectful of and impressed with, how did you get to where you are? She said something to me that I share with young people. Do what you say, do what you say you're going to do, and if you can't, communicate that you can and what the options are. So it comes down to work integrity and work
Mm-hmm.
ethic and communication. So it's really a compilation of many different things that I would say to young people, but you have to apply yourself. You have to have the discipline. You have to be hungry. You have to be consistent. Um, and you can't let people tell you no. Like you really have to challenge no. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not qualified. Why not? What 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 do I need to get to be qualified? You got to be assertive.
Mm-hmm. Listen, in getting to your actual, your real estate business, I was telling you like the first time that me and you had a chance to speak, I learned something from you about screening tenants, and I'm like, man, and that's the beauty of it, though, right? I've been in real estate for over 20 plus years, but I'm still learning. I'm always learning
Hmm.
from other people's experience. Um, so you've picked up a lot of gems and things along the way as a landlord. So do you guys self manage all of your property?
Yes, we do.
Okay, okay, and so you said that is primarily residential. Do you just focus on residential, only residential?
So yes, we primarily have single family. Where we
Okay,
got our start, though, I always give credence to my mother-in-law, the late Estella Babb, who introduced us into real estate. We got our start managing her multifamily units in Queen Village. She had
okay,
triplexes, right? And so we've done triplexes, but we have single families. Yeah.
okay, okay. Is that like your preference? Or do you guys like because I'm gonna tell you why I'm asking this, right? I have this like unpopular opinion, because a lot of times you go online, you see people talking, everybody wants to get the 50 unit, the 100 unit. I like single family homes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'm in the minority in saying that, but it's a reason for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I find them to be easier to find great tenants.
Mm-hmm.
I also find them to be more liquid. And
Mm-hmm.
where I'm at in my career, I like liquidity, right? So if I'm selling a single family home, I'm open to first time home buyers, other investors. I'm open to pretty much everybody.
Right.
There's not too many people that are look to buy a 20 unit building other than other investors. And if you're an investor, you're not trying to pay market rate anyway.
Right.
So that's
Right.
just a personal opinion. So I was wondering, like, when you say that we deal in single family, is
Yeah.
that a strategy behind that, or that's just how things worked out?
Is kind of both, in that, as I mentioned, we used to manage my mother-in-law's triplexes, right? So we had that experience of the transientness of triplexes, much
Yes.
more turnover, right? And then when we got into the investment space, which was as a result of a gift, a $14,000 gift from my mother-in-law for us to buy our first investment property, because she kept saying, you all need to start buying real estate. My husband well, I'm from West Philadelphia. My husband was born and raised in Graduate Hospital.
Okay.
For those of you who are not
Man.
familiar with Philadelphia, is the first ring neighborhood of Center City. That's where
Yes.
he grew up. So that's where his mother was investing. And so she convinced us and said that she would gift us of $14,000 to buy our first investment property, which was a single family.
Well,
And
hold on,
so,
real quick. Can we just stop and give some flowers to your mother-in-law, because you talk about that's what we like to talk about in terms of generational wealth, and
yeah,
her giving you just capital, hey, or get you guys started, and now you've built a multi-million-dollar portfolio. So we
yes,
just want to give her flowers and shout out to your mother-in-law. That's amazing.
absolutely. And she was a factory sewer who was an avid saver and had saved this $14,000 as an inheritance to my husband. But
Hmm.
she came across two properties side by side, and she brought one for 14,000 and said, "You all need to buy this, and I'm going to give it to you with the understanding that when I die, you will not get an inheritance."
Hmm.
We still own that property today. When we
Wow.
talk about wealth building,
Hmm.
that $14,000 gift just keeps on giving.
It's in the Graduate Hospital.
It's in Graduate Hospital,
Okay,
single
wow.
family.
Yo, say less. Listen,
Say less.
I've done a lot of valuation work in Graduate Hospital. I know what the median value is there. So I'm
Yeah.
just gonna leave it at that. That's an amazing story though.
Yes. Yes.
Take your inheritance now, but the fact that she gave it to you now makes it worth more. If she would have waited to give it to you, it had less purchasing power in terms of
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's an amazing story.
Absolutely. So that first house was a single family, and my husband and I, we would go to seminars and conferences, and we heard a story from one of the instructors, which was a major investor in New York at the time, and he owned all these apartment buildings, but he had an ideology. He said each one of his properties was a cow, and that he would never sell the cow. You just milk the cow into future generations. and we used that method and that ideology and brought single family properties. Um, we have a tenant that's been with us. Talk about how people stay longer in single family
Hmm.
versus apartments. She's signing her 14th year lease. And every time I call her at the top of the year, are you going to, she finishes the sentence, I ain't leaving my house. So people have more ownership, we have found, with single family opposed to
Yes.
apartments.
I agree. I agree. I'm glad someone else said it because people argue me because but I understand the other side in terms of like scaling.
Sure.
But for me, I'm a long term buy and hold. I'm a lazy investor, and I find that people, what you just said, and I like the way you said that. I'm gonna steal that line too. I steal all your stuff, Kim. But people have a sense of ownership as a tenant in a single family. They look at it as being their house.
They do.
Also, my experience is even when it is a turnover, it's less damage because they look at it as being their house. People treat apartments, they just tear them up. In terms of their house, they treat it a little bit different, right? So, I've even had people like, who lie to their family and friends and say they own the property and they're my tenant. I have no problem with that. I don't care as long as you pay on time and take care of it. But the upkeep is a little different. So that's why I wanted to ask that question. But that's amazing that you guys, that story, I didn't know that story to just now. That is a powerful story about your mother-in-law, how she set you guys up. And that's very inspired by that because
Absolutely. And my husband and I sometimes will just, especially during COVID, post COVID, like, and that we have a 0% eviction rate in 38 years that we've been managing her properties and our properties, and going through COVID, um, with 100% rent collection, zero delinquencies. We just walk through the house sometimes past each other, and I look at him and he looks at me and I'll be like, we blessed, right?
man, I want you to talk about how is that even possible for you to have a zero? Because you've been in this like what 20 plus years now,
38 years.
38 years.
I was forced to figure out that number going through a program I just went through, because in marketing and content, I'm saying 3 decades. We got 3 decades. And my
Yeah.
coach was like, no, no, no. How many years? And I went back and it's been 38 years.
See, Kim, I'm taking more notes from you. I'm stealing more of your stuff, right? Hey, listen, Kim is a wealth of knowledge. I'm learning right now as we have this conversation. I got to start saying the exact years. I always say 2 decades too. Like I just learned something new from you. Um,
38 years, yeah.
how is it possible? Could you give us, I know you can't give us all the secret sauce because you teach it, but just give us a little bit of how is that possible?
So for those in Philadelphia and around the country, many people know Dan Harvey, Dan the
Hmm.
real estate man, right?
Yep.
And I saw him present at Better Than Success a few years ago at a mastermind. And Dan said something that was so profound that I've quoted him many, many times. And he said that landlording is a skill set.
Okay.
Landlording is a skill set, and many people don't recognize or understand that landlording is a skill set. So when you ask the question, were we able to, come out with a report card of a 0% eviction rate in 38 years? I believe that we had the skill set. Like, my husband and I are really, we complement each other as a couple. He handles everything on the construction side, the maintenance side. I handle everything on tenant relations, marketing, and the administrative piece. So between the two of us, we've brought our professional skills into our business, and
Hmm.
we've been able to apply the discipline, systems, strategy. I just retired as chief strategy officer. I'm a strategist.
Hmm.
This is what I do.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
look ahead, right? And creating systems and communication
Communication.
with our tenants, like, and setting the right tone, which is mindset, and which I talk about this in my training, like the psychology of it all.
Hmm.
I talk about, as a landlord, what's your psychology? What's the psychology of the tenant? Let's get into the mindset of this thing. So I think it's been as a result of, what we've discovered along the journey, systems that we put in place, documents that we've created to create a systematic way of communicating. And just, the whole ball of wax has really delivered us in a way. Now, I'm not going to say that early on when we were managing my mother-in-law's properties, that we didn't stumble, get bumps and bruises along the way trying to figure this thing out, because we didn't go to school for property management. We didn't go to school for real estate in the beginning. So we really honed the skills and created, a clear system that we repeated and that we're able to share.
Man, that's amazing. And also shout out to Dan. Dan has been on his podcast as well, and he's amazing at what he does. So yeah, that's those numbers are just like beyond belief. 38 years, like a 0% eviction rate. That's even through COVID. So how did COVID affect your business, if at all?
It didn't. And again, I will highlight _, the importance of communication.
Okay.
And relationships, right? HAPCO, I won't take credit for it, but they came out years ago and it's still pinned up in our office, the 10 commandments of landlording. And one of the commandments is, I'm friendly to your tenants. I'm friendly, but I'm not your friend. I'm friendly. And so this is a business relationship. It's a mutually beneficial relationship. And so we approach it like that. When COVID hit, because of our business relationship with our business partners, as we call our tenants, because they are our on-site property managers, right? They are managing
our whole different way to look at it. That's that mindset you're talking about.
They're managing our asset for us. I reached out to each and every one of them personally and asked the question, how you doing? In reference to COVID. And I shut my mouth and I listened to them. And many of them said, I'm okay, I'm working from home, or they shared whatever their situation was. But before I called them, we had created a rent deferral policy for our company.
Okay.
Just in case they had an answer that wasn't 100% of what, the past relationship had been, this would be step 1, 2, 3, and 4. Fortunately, the other reason that my husband and I walk by each other and say, we blessed, right, is that we're not over leveraged. We're not over leveraged. So that releases the pressure. That released the pressure for us in the COVID situation if we had tenants who couldn't pay.
Yeah.
And the tenant that's been with us for, at that point, 13 years. Yeah. And she couldn't pay. You think I'm going to kick you out now that you've been like cash flowing me for 13 years because of COVID and I'm not over leveraged? Come on, we're in this together. So that was the approach and the strategy and the position that we as a company are in. So fortunately, none of our tenants could not pay. Yeah.
That's awesome. Do you take just market rate tenants, or do you do any like Section 8 programs at all? Like, what is your strategy with that?
We need to go through the Section 8 training, but right now it's all market.
All market tenants. Okay. Another question I have just based upon our conversation is, you talk about how you and your husband work together and how you guys have been able to build. Can you talk to us a little bit about the power of you guys working together as a team and being on the same page? Because I think like, your relationship is kind of a cheat code when you have two of you guys on the same page working together.
Okay, so let me just answer that by saying we've been friends for 40 years.
Okay.
We've been married for 38. I ask people who are in relationships or married, pray for me and I'll pray for you, because being in relationships is not easy in general.
Yes.
Okay. And then you layer your partner being a business partner on top of that. It hasn't been all peaches and cream. We are not always on the same page.
Okay.
He's much more conservative. I'm much more aggressive,
really
in risk. Yeah.
That's interesting.
So again, communication is the elixir of all relationships. So we have, we've had great communication over the years. Hasn't always been smooth. But we've been lifetime students, right?
Okay.
And that's helped us to, navigate our relationship.
Okay.
It's again, if I stand on my heels and look back, he's like the best guy out of the bunch that I could have linked up with.
We'll make
Even
sure we send him this clip right here.
yeah, that's one in the bunch of the guys that I was encountering through my life. And it's just, the planets have lined up for us to really complement each other.
Yeah. Oh man, this is a very inspiring story. I'm inspired by your whole story. Let me ask you this question. Along this journey, what is your favorite book or book that's inspired you?
So I thought about that answer, and it's really hard because my mother was an avid reader. My childhood sweetheart, that many people thought I was going to marry, his father was an avid reader.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, every room in our house has a library.
It
So
could be a couple books. It's not to be one. Just give me a couple.
I know, I know, I know.
A couple of your favorites.
A couple of my favorites. So, an early book that really, laid the foundation for me was Your Erroneous Zones.
Your
Um,
erroneous. Okay.
yeah, that really, talked about self-control and positive thinking. Every year I read Who Moved My Cheese.
I like that one. Yeah.
It talks about change, like how we have to manage change.
Mm-hmm.
On the real estate side, The Color of Law
Ooh,
focuses
powerful.
on real estate and the whole backdrop of racial segregation and prejudice in real estate. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I just got a book by Mark Lamont Hill, who just came out with a new book
Yeah,
called
it's a new one.
Seen and Unseen, that talks about technology and how it democratizes how we capture racial injustice based on social media, cell phones, and all that kind of stuff. So I read from a uh, like a cafeteria style. I'm like picking and choosing depending on how I
Mm-hmm.
feel every day. I'm reading multiple books all the time.
Same here. Same here. There's another good book. I don't know if you read this before. It's called Family Properties. Um, it's by an author named Beryl Satter. But
No.
it's an excellent book. It's along the lines of The Color of Law, but
Mm-hmm.
it's shown like the narrative is it's a story of a young lady whose father was a landlord in Chicago in the '60s, and she's like telling their story, but it goes over some of the same things as Color of Law, um, but she's giving like her perspective as someone who saw it up front and how race plays a part in real estate, right?
And who's the author again?
It's like Beryl Satter, Beryl Sadder, something. I believe that's the spelling, but you'll find it's called Beryl Satter is the author, but it's called
Got it.
Family Properties. Yeah, so it's a pretty interesting. And if you like Color of Law, you'll definitely like this because it's a story. Like, I mean, and it's very, very, very because what it talks about is not just redlining, but it talks
Mm-hmm.
about how because of redlining, people were forced to pay these exorbitant rents because they had no choice.
Yeah.
And how over time that thing, like, we always talk about compounding on the good side, how thing compound interest works on the good side, but compounding works backwards as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
You do this one evil thing and then it compounds into more evil things. So, interesting book. I just thought I'd bring it up when you mentioned The Color of Law.
Absolutely. I'll look that up.
Yeah. So, so tell us about. I know you said you have the education company, you have your real estate company, and those are the primary things you're working on as well. But I do happen to see the logo behind you for Landlord Docs. What is Landlord Docs?
Landlord Docs 30. That's before I was counting the years. Is a digital property management document bundle that we took to market about 3 years ago.
Okay.
Because at one point, my husband, he would ask me for a blank copy of our application, a blank copy of our lease to share with someone, and the light bulb went off. As the administrator, having created all of these documents over the years, and I said, if Microsoft has a bundle, we have a bundle.
Mm-hmm.
And we came out with Landlord Docs 30, which is the representation of all the documents that we use to manage our properties that we've created over these 3 decades. And it's been
Over the not 3 decades, the 38 years.
38 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
But at
Yeah.
the time I wasn't counting, specifically 30, Landlord Docs 30. And so we took it to market. And I mean, it just was well received by landlords, aspiring landlords, existing landlords. It gives you it's like 30 documents, but it covers everything: addendums, leases, applications, to help you not have to go to Staples and
Mm-hmm.
buy just an off-the-shelf lease. Our lease is a 10-page lease. It covers many, many clauses. So we went to market and offer that to landlords because many of them don't know where to start. And this is a great bundle to get them what they need to manage their property.
Awesome. Only have two more questions for you, right?
Sure.
So the first question would be, if someone is coming to you now as an aspiring investor, they're just getting started, what would be your advice to them? What would be your first piece of advice? What is the first thing they should do? They're saying, listen, I'm, fresh out of high school or college. I want to become a real estate investor.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Kim, what should I do?
Mm-hmm. What you should do, first of all, is do your research. Read as much as you can about real estate. Learn the terms, and just the industry in general. And I kind of respond with, if I knew then what I knew now, that's what I tell young people. Buy a multifamily unit, like house hack, buy a duplex or a triplex,
Mm-hmm.
so that you can build that foundation of an asset to leverage into other things. Like when we first started, we bought our primary home. We didn't know, no one told us that a strategy could be buy a duplex, live in one,
And rent the
let
other
your
one.
tenant pay, and leverage that and get your dream home, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm teaching young people and any aspiring investor now. If you're okay with delayed gratification, get into multifamilies now and just bone up, do your research. If you're looking for a mentor or someone to, interact with that season, come with questions. Don't come
Mm-hmm.
with teach me,
Yeah.
the language. No, do your homework, do your research, be assertive and tenacious, and then come with questions.
Great, great. And I like that analogy you used too about the milk and the cow. Because I always look at each property as its own business.
Mm-hmm,
Also, I've made the analogy of each property as its own bank.
mm-hmm.
Um, but the milk and cow, I like that one too. I gotta steal that too.
And if
I'm,
I can add to that, Jimmy, what we say to our three sons,
mm-hmm,
who, when we talk about generational wealth, we say to them, like, we have been, with the help of your grandmother, we've been financial revolutionaries in our
mm-hmm,
family, right? And the broader sense is, how a $14,000 gift and gentrification
mm-hmm,
created a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio.
mm-hmm.
That's really the recipe. So we tell our sons, in reference to the cow, you can take these cows and milk them into future generations if you just
Yes.
maintain them.
Yep. And the one thing is, you also had time. You've given it time. So it wasn't as soon as she gave you the 14,000 hours work, but over time, it's went up. Crazy. But that's the thing. It's your whole story is inspiring because now you're on to the third generation that's going to benefit from grandma's 14,000. And also, what's inspiring about that story is you said grandma was a seamstress, right? Like she just was a great saver,
Yes, she
and
was.
her decision to be a great saver are going to change the lives of grandchildren and future grandchildren. So that is a very, very powerful story. That's what we talk about, like black wealth. That's what it looks like.
And and the three other components that really add to the recipe of success for us is, to your point, timing. We brought the right location at the right time at the right price.
Yep, yep. Wow. So, what does the future look like for you, Kim? Now that you're retired and you're focused fully on all your businesses, what does your future look like?
I am free to be me. I had never experienced this sense of freedom until I retired from my 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
To be as creative and exploratory, um, without any boundaries, without having to ask for permission, without having to ask for time off. So I'm in such a freeing and creative space right now. So what the future looks like for me is, if I can, and I will keep, growing, educating myself, serving, and financially supporting in the philanthropic way. Like, I'm hitting on all of those cylinders. Life is great. Life is great.
That's
So
amazing to hear.
I'm in a place, I've incorporated a motto: learn, earn, and return. I believe that we should learn as much as we can, earn what we can from that knowledge, and then return it to the community. So the season I'm in right now is returning and pouring back.
Can you repeat that again? You said learn, earn, and return.
Yes.
I like that.
Learn, earn, and return.
I'm writing that down. I like that one. Learn, earn, and return. Okay. Listen, you got me over here taking notes. Like learn, earn, and return. I like that. I like
Yeah.
that whole paradigm. Learn, earn, and return.
So
Okay.
my cup is full. I'm pouring out. I want to return it back into the community before the good Lord takes me.
That's amazing. Listen, you have a very inspiring story, and I just want to say, last, I just want to thank you first and foremost for, being transparent and sharing your story. I think that you'll inspire a lot of other folks. And for some of us, we're going to be the ones to give that 14,000, right? So it
Yeah.
has to start from somewhere. And that story itself is just very, very inspiring to me. I'm going to leave this conversation, and then I'm ready to go do some work now because I've been very inspired by your story overall. So I just want to thank you so much, and also wish you much continued success with everything you got going on. Also want to say I appreciate you because like you said, you've gotten 2 tickets to help support what we're doing in the community, and we really, really appreciate that. Every time I've talked to you, I've learned from you, but you're also like supporting what we're trying to do in our own neighborhoods, in our own community. So I can't thank you enough.
I thank you. I thank you and Corey, what you all are building, have built, and will continue to build with the support of the community. That's what we're here for. We have to collaborate, support each
Mhm.
other, and continue to buy the hood.
That's right. We appreciate you so much. So, for our audience out there, I'm going to leave links to everything that Kim has going on. Please check out what she has going on. Make sure that you reach out. She does educate now. So, and she has time to focus on that, as well as she has her landlord docs as well. So, and please believe me, I don't care how long you've been doing this. You can learn from Kim. I'm telling you that. I'm pretty sure you learned something this episode. But she's a wealth of knowledge and her experience. You can't, man. Listen, that amount of time with a 0% eviction rate, that's phenomenal. For those that are in the business already, you know how phenomenal that is, right? So with that being said, make sure you reach out, see everything that Kim has going on. And for our audience, we just want to say thank you so much for like listening or watching, however you're consuming this content. We appreciate you. As we always say, it's not about how much money you make, it's about how much you keep. Game elevates. We'll see you guys in our next episode, but thank you so much. Peace.